Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
I am welcome you all for the day 4 section of the AST program. AST sponsored STTP program on assessment in engineering education, a pedagogical approach organized by Department of Mechanical Engineering on behalf of my VELAMMAL Institute of Technology. I am extremely honored to welcome by introduction our speaker, Dr. Kapil Kadam. He is a researcher in the area of educational technology and completed his PhD in educational technologies from IIT Bombay. Um, he pursued his BE and MTech in computer science and engineering from Shivaji University. Currently, he working as an educational consultant and offered MOOCs courses on IIT Bombay X about the fundamentals of 3D visualization, and also conducted several faculty development programs across the India's, such as various topics like active learning, IST in education, flipped classroom, online teaching, blend learning, educational technology research, and content delivery. His current research interests include educational technology, so development of spatial skills, computer science, educational research, and teacher training, engineer drawing, e-learning. In addition to that, his research, he is a blender enthusiast and has conducted the several blending training program, training workshop for teachers and students in India. So this workshop focuses his workshop mainly focuses on the basis of 3D modeling, 3D animation, and 3D visualization using Blender. Once again, it is our pleasure to welcome our speaker and hand over to the today's section, sir. Welcome, sir. Welcome, Dr. Kapil Kadam, sir.
Thank you very much for the warm welcome. Maybe we can continue and start. Can we start?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Start, sir. Okay, sir.
In order to just maintain the bandwidth, I would like to turn off my video and would
Yeah,
request.
okay, sir. I will off the video. Okay, sir. You can also off.
Thank you very much. So yeah, good
Okay,
morning, everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me for this session on the assessment. So we already have started. Audience can mute their mics and turn off your video so that we can utilize the bandwidth as well as avoid the noise. If there is something that you want to ask in between, you can use the chat window as well as you can unmute yourself and ask a question, or you can use Zoom features. So broadly, this session is about assessment, and as all of you are from the teaching background, we all aware that assessment is one of the interesting as well as toughest tasks that as a teacher we have to do. And so there are different aspects to look at it. I will try to focus mostly on what is assessment, why to do assessment, how to do assessment, and I'll be using few examples on how to do online assessment. So session will be interactive in nature. So I would request participants to actively participate in the interactions that will take place. Approximately the session normally lasts 90 minutes. We can see if how much time we can take beyond that. So yes, so today's agenda of the webinar is we'll be looking about assessment, what, why, and how. Then deciding different assessment activities, and then assessing students online. For example, I would talk about some tools such as Mentimeter, Padlet, and few examples of Moodle. So let me start with assessment and what, why, and how. So here is a welcoming activity for all of us. So each one has to say one. So basically, this is nothing but you have to, suppose you're teaching any course or any specific course that you're teaching. What are the different types of assessment activities that can be designed? You can think of, okay, and what is the purpose of this assessment? You need to think about these two aspects. You can take a minute to do that, and then you can post your responses in a chat. So your time starts now. So specific to your course, what are the different type of assessment activities that can be designed? Or what is the purpose of assessment? You can think of anything and you can post it in the chat. So if you could see the Zoom chat window, you can respond over there. So Professor Sarvanan is saying the continuous assessment test. So even the timer is getting over. You can still submit your responses for internal marks. Okay, continuous assessment for internal marks, then MCQ, short answer, essay, simulations, MCQ, internal marks. I could see a few responses. Evaluation of learning skills. That's an interesting response. Case studies, mini projects. So I could see the mix responses like purpose as well as the activities, seminars, case study, project summary report, in-depth knowledge of the subject, okay, PPT, group discussion, think, pair, share, MCQ, semester exams. Okay, so there are plenty of responses that I could see over here. Semester exam, Viva, Jose. Okay, so broadly we are able to understand the purpose as well as how we conduct the assessment. So just to summarize and just to add on to what we or all of you have said, so broadly the purpose of assessment, it has varied purposes. So just to summarize for everyone, so mainly to find out the prior knowledge of the learner. Sometimes we want to know the prior knowledge. Then sometimes we need to find out the interest of the student, and then to understand at what extent learning has happened, right? So we this is one of the major thing that we use assessment for. Then it helps in analyzing to what extent teaching strategy was effective. So not only for learner but as well as for teacher it is also important. Then it allows teacher to move to next topic or repeat. Then another purpose is which students need help. So in the class of normally 50 or 60, we need to identify which students need more help or which are performing well. So is learner ready for higher level? So again, this is identifying the level of understanding. Then based on that, how to plan next session or how to improve your course. Okay, major aspect is have learning objectives been achieved. So normally we set up learning objectives at the beginning of the course. So have we made those up, have we achieved those learning objectives? Then to compare or rank students, then using the information for rewards or perks. Then there are certain criteria like selecting or filtering based on pass and fail or screening students. Then standardizing some performance. And at the organization level, for accrediting organization or accrediting teachers, we use assessment. This is extensive list of the purpose of the assessment, but not necessarily these are the only things. You can keep on adding. So this is the list of the purpose of the assessment. So broadly, this can be categorized into few things like diagnostic, summative, and formative assessment. So I will just broadly talk about these things in the initially, then we can also take a look further, detail looking further. So for a diagnostic assessment, it is mainly used to understand the level of students or knowledge to inform course implementation or tailor courses. I will talk about few examples later on. Then formative assessment mainly used for to give feedback to students and to enhance their learning and understanding, to correct their learning, again to get feedback on teaching as well as teachers performance, right? So not only student. Then reinforcing or the behavior and the modification, behavior modification. Then we do formative assessment to prepare students for future, right? Then in specific intervals we conduct it for investigating whether the learning objectives have been met or not. Okay. Then there comes a summative assessment where you could see it is to understand the level of students' knowledge. Then we can categorize or rank students, like few of you have already said, semester end exams. Then job selection or next level or certain scholarship exams, or we can use summative assessment for standardizing things. Okay. Also as well as standardization of organization, so you can think of this accreditation process. So broadly, what we have been seeing is what do people use assessment for. So based on this diagnostic, summative, and formative, let us take a little more detail about this. So what people do assessment for, right? So summative assessment, or this is the assessment of learning. So this is an important aspect. So this is the assessment of learning, where it provides opportunity to students for demonstrating their achievement of skills and knowledge, right? So it is assessment of learning, and it provides opportunity students for demonstrating their achievement of knowledge and skills. So basically, using this we can describe what students can do or what they value, or as a teacher we can evaluate them with respect to certain set standards, marking schemes. Also we can evaluate them with respect to each other, that is relative grading that we use. Okay, so basically this talks about summation and the grading. So what are a few examples of summative assessment? So already you have mentioned in the chat. Okay, but I will again list it out. So end semester exam, then job interview, then those who have already done PhD or pursuing PhD, the PhD Viva final defense is the summative assessment example. Then let us take a look at the formative assessment, or the assessment for learning. Correct. So this actually provides multiple opportunities for student to practice skills and apply knowledge. So that's basically improving learning. Okay. So this is continuously analyze students' progress towards goal to improve teaching as well as learning. So this is mostly the continuous assessment. So what are this? What aspect does the formative assessment has? So it is always ongoing. It can be ongoing, or it can occur every day, or after every unit, or every term, depending on the purpose. You can decide which part you want to use as a formative assessment. So for example, if the first year students end sem exam is summative assessment for first year, but that can act as a formative assessment for their 4-year degree course or 3-year degree course, right? Then it will allow you to determine where student is actually. Then it will give you feedback for changing or making alteration to the course as well as content. This will always direct or point teacher or students to the next steps. So what is going to happen next, right? So the emphasis is not much on grades. So this is something that we need to keep thing in mind, because this is for learning, right? And it's continuous. So what are a few examples? Already some of you have mentioned in the chat, like discussion can be a good way of conducting formative assessment. Then somebody said think, pair, share, right? So these are the active learning strategies where think, pair, share and peer instruction, predict, observe, explain, these are the active learning strategy. Midterm project evaluation is one of the good example of formative assessment. So I will also talk about few examples that how I am using certain ways, on tools and technologies for online formative assessment and something like that. You'll get to know in the further part of the session. Okay. Then I'll come back to the very first type of assessment, which is diagnostic assessment, or the assessment that occurs before learning. So this is an interesting part. So most commonly teachers do this. We all practice this, but we never utilize its potential. We never try to align this to the other assessment types like formative or summative. Okay. So diagnostic assessment is mainly allows, to diagnose what student does not know. This is very important aspect, or what students know or what student does not know. And then it will allow you to determine what knowledge and skills students can bring. Then you can basically range of, you can put a range of individual differences. You can sort students based on their understanding. And also it will allow you to how you can tailor your instruction. So once you have diagnosis of what level students do have, you can always plan your instructions accordingly. So what are some examples of diagnostic assessment? Most commonly, from students perspective, you can think of placement test, right? Then foreign language test, where you can decide if students should do a basic or intermediate or advanced level of language, right? And a few other examples of diagnostic assessment would be, say, consider in a psychology subject, instructor can survey students' assumptions about, the concept that will taught in the course. So for example, nature of mind or behavior. So this is very open-ended concept for psychology subjects, where students can come up with their understanding of concepts. So it could be exactly technically correct, or there could be some assumptions that students might be having. Then in courses like introductory physics, a teacher can use some conceptual questions and test their fundamental understanding about the course. Or there are some courses which require group work. Their teacher can investigate or survey students' prior experiences in working with group. So definitely this will help teacher in understanding what students background is and how these students do think, their attitudes toward group work. Okay, right? So these are the few examples. Now this is some link for your reference. Now I'll show you a scenario. Okay, so you can go through the scenario. You can take 2 to 3 to 5 minutes, and it's very short. I can also narrate for you, but I want you to read it carefully. So I'll just display the slide. You can read the scenario. Yeah. Sorry for the interruption. So once you are done, you can, or I'll right away start after 5 minutes. Okay, so I assume that everybody must have read the scenario. So based on this scenario, just try to remember this or memorize this situation or the scenario, because I have a very small question for you guys. So are there any ICT tools used in this given scenario? So first you need to just recall if the tools have been used. If yes, can you please list out the tools and or possibly its purposes? You can post your responses in the chat box. Okay, so you need to tell me whether there are any ICT tools used. If yes, you can list it out and respond to the chat box. Polling. So Professor Sarvanan is talking about polling has been used. Okay, I can keep the scenario on here. So those who want to revisit can certainly revisit this. Used YouTube. Okay, WhatsApp messengers. You could see two tools and one purpose, maybe a different one. Blog, yes, I could see that. Any other? Google Form, Facebook, polls for attendance, two, okay. Excellent. So if I have to think about, okay, classroom management app, correct? Google Form. Yeah. So I could see most of you have identified tools and few purposes. So I just to summarize or just to show you what you're talking about is, yeah, I have just highlighted this terms, worksheet at the end of the class every day, FB blog, WhatsApp, GCR. Great. So this is what the scenario talks about. So these are the YouTube for, showing the video, quiz, online quiz. Then you can see online quiz using Google Form, the picture sharing pictures using WhatsApp Messenger, blog for information transmission, then regular post and reflection, see a classroom management app for real-time polls, quizzes, attendance. Then there is a quiz tool, right? So these are the purposes and tools that have been that I could found in the scenario. So these are nothing but the ICT. Okay, so the technologies that have been used in these processes are information and communication technology. So we are very quietly familiar with this, but you can consider and you must have come across such kind of more technologies in these online scenarios. Okay, so what I wanted to talk about is, so there are these technologies and tools and resources that have been used, and they have certain purposes towards information and knowledge. Okay, so quiz, so tools to create quiz, okay, through information. Then video is used for disseminating information. The CRM apps can be used to store information. Blogs can be used to manage information. So this is broadly, you can see how ICT can be useful in education. So you must be thinking about why I'm talking about ICT. ICT, but definitely, if you can think ICT, that it has a very strong potential to be used in various practices in education. So let me start with, mainly the teaching and learning. So where ICT can be integrated in content creation or content delivery or collaboration among students and the learners or students and the teachers. Okay, then ICT can be used for learner engagement. Also you can do the administration. So this is what we have seen in these tools in the scenario itself, and most of you are very well aware of this. And one of the major important thing is ICT can also be used for assessment. So that's where I wanted to show you that assessment is one of the important aspects. Okay, so in order to do this, we have very vast list of tools these days, and these are the Bloom's level from recall to create to apply, right? So these are the different existing tools and technologies that can be used for many different purposes. We will take look at few examples later on about assessment. Okay, so the major important part is use of visualization for ICT. Okay, such as animations and simulations. As we are aware, very much aware that these visualizations have been shown to provide many learning benefits, especially in STEM discipline, right? So you could see there are two examples. One is simulation, interactive simulation, as well as the other one is different interactive simulations where you can work with mathematical formulas as well as different graphical representation at the same time, right? So I want to know how, as a teacher, how do you people use visualization in your classroom? So just a quick response I expect from you, which is you can think about, you know, in what ways you use visualization in a class. You can think of any kind of visualization, okay? Static, dynamic, moving, animation, simulation, anything you want to think about. Then you can also, if you want, you can talk about when one should use visualization, or right, you can talk about different elements and components of the visualization. Let me see. Okay. Some noise in the presentation. Am I audible now?
Yes, sir. Audible, sir. Audible,
Oh,
sir.
okay, okay.
Okay, sir.
3D models, you're saying when too much lecture is boring, visualization helps to re-kick the enthusiasm of students. That's a very interesting example, because I have been taking sessions on 3D modeling and 3D animation. So this actually engages students in different way. Animation video, live demo, okay, live simulations of the designs. Okay, in laboratories. Fine. So just I wanted to get a view of industry or lab visits, then animated PPT and videos. Great. So how do we use visualization in class, right? So how do most instructors or teachers use visualization in class? Like some of you have already said. So teacher can play or show or demonstrate some visualization using PPT or projector in the form of video or simulation, right? And uh, then teacher can also give some narrative or explanation about the kind of visualization teacher is using. So this is what normally teachers do. But what students do, most of the time they simply will observe or watch the shown visualization, and they can ask, they normally ask certain questions for or clarification if needed. So do you think that demonstration and explanation, these two parts, okay, are they effective? You can simply respond yes or no. Are they effective? Now there is a very interesting thought you can think about. I'm asking whether it is effective or not. Yes. So most common answer we would be receiving is yes, definitely. Okay, I could see whoever has responded, we can see most of them are saying yes. Now, it's not just you or me, but it has been proven from the research that, you know, the results from the research also talks about showing demo alone is not effective. So just if you are showing some demonstration, that is simply showing demonstration is not effective. So there's a potential benefits of visualization is lost if students simply watch the demonstration. Okay, and the way teacher teaches with the visualization has a profound effect on learning effectiveness, right? So it's not just about showing the demo or explanation, but how the teacher uses. So like just now we saw the example of using 3D models to make it more interesting, because what happens when they watch something in 3D, they really get excited and that triggers their thinking in some dimension. Okay? Now this is what the how visualization can be used. But what is the major problem? Okay, I'll come back to assessment. So what are the major problems? So ICT is everywhere. We can see in this current situation also, everyone is encouraging using LMS, use Google Classroom, use Zoom, Microsoft Team, use MOOCs, different visualizations, simulations, videos, wiki, blogs, tools. Okay? We have been encouraged to use all these things. However, this potential of these technologies is lost without appropriate pedagogical strategies. So this is very important aspects, all as all of us are aware. And the problem in difficulty, like in designing and implementing learner-centric practices with ICT. So what is the solution to these common problems? So definitely the solutions is like teachers need to have knowledge of few aspects, like which ICT tools are useful. So now which ICT tools, if there are 50 ICT tools for one purpose, but which one is useful for your teaching style, that is also important, right? Then how to choose a tool for given learning objective. So you must be setting up some learning objective for your one lecture or seven lectures or just half part of the lecture. Okay, and then how to effectively integrate the instructional strategies with these tools. Okay, now I will uh, show this with some engaging demonstration, and we can look at it. So I will talk about Mentimeter. So before I give examples or I show some activity, I will start with a question for everyone. So have you used Mentimeter to present before? So you don't need to respond in chat window. Just go to menti.com and enter this code. I will paste this code in chat box so that you can participate. So I have posted it in a chat. Simply go to menti.com and enter this code 1379157. Okay. So if you go to menti.com and if you enter this code, you will find this poll window, right? Where you have been asked, have you used Mentimeter to present before? Yes, no, no, but in the audience, I don't know. You can take a while to switch your windows, or you can simply participate through mobile also. So here I could see few responses are getting generated. So I could see 3 responses have been received, and most of them, one of them have used it, one have not used, one is not aware of. Okay, so you can simply observe what is happening with this live polling. So before talking about Mentimeter, I wanted to know how many of you actually have used Mentimeter and not. Okay, so those who are not able to access, I think they are responding in the chat. Okay. So most of The participants, I could say, have not responded, but those who have responded, only few have used it and few have not used it. Most of you have not used it, right? So for, yeah, I'm receiving some more responses. Okay, so those who have not used it, this is how you can participate in the polling when you're using Mentimeter. And once you get familiarized with this, is a very effective tool to interact with students. I'll show you how that can be done. So I'll be having a couple of more activities using Mentimeter, and I urge everyone to rather responding in the chat, you can participate in the Mentimeter. So you just keep a different tab open, and every time I will have a different code for different activities. Only couple of activities will be there more. Okay. Okay, so what is Mentimeter? Yeah, sure. Thank you. Thank you, Professor. So what is Mentimeter? You can just get back to the slides so that we can discuss. So Mentimeter is easy to use interactive presentation tool. You can use it for presenting your slides as well as this polling. Somebody please switch off your mic. So this tool is used to increase student learning, okay, as well as engagement in the classroom. So once I showed the demonstration, you can think of different ways how you want to use these tools. Then you can use it to test some knowledge or share ideas and feedback. So like I just tested whether you know this tool or not. Then it could be inclusive and fun depending on the way you want to use it. This is free to use, and most importantly, this is important for triggering the thinking. So I use it to trigger thinking, okay, rather, and of course inclusive of the other purposes. I like it using for triggering thinking, irrespective of whether students respond or participant respond or not. Simply using this representation will definitely trigger something to their mind, right? If somebody knows this person can actually talk to the people who are uh, saying yes, and they can, if they are interested in learning. So if this person knows or already aware of the Mentimeter, this reinforces their knowledge, or they will get curious, if is there anything that I'm missing, or is there anything new that I'll be learning, right? So how to use it? Simply ask a question, take the audience vote or poll depending on the purpose, okay, and then present results in the real time like the way I just did it. So there are two ways to use Mentimeter. So if you're a teacher or a presenter, or if you're a student or you're in the audience. So if you're a teacher, you need to go to mentimeter.com. So, and if you're a student, you need to go to menti.com. I'll show a few examples of this in the upcoming part. Let me see if somebody's responding. So for audience, you don't need to have Mentimeter login. You just need to simply go to menti.com, and you just need to enter the code. Maybe if I can show you, suppose menti.com. Here you don't need to log in. You just need to enter the code 123456. If you submit it, so this is a sample example that has been used in Mentimeter. You can use our example itself, right? So you don't need to have a login to participate in, right? Okay. So now I want everyone to participate in the next activity. Okay, to just get to feel of everything. If you're not able to access, it's very simple. Just go to menti.com. You open a tab in your phone as well as your laptop. Nothing big deal. Okay. So here is an activity for all of us. So my learning objective for this activity is to students should be able to predict the outcome of a certain phenomena. So you could see there are certain images being shown and there is a condition. So you could see a bowling ball and a feather which is being hanged at certain height, okay, a significant height in a chamber, okay. So the condition is dropping the ball and the feather together in a chamber from a significant height. So that is what the condition one. Now, what I'm expecting is the first is the normal condition in the chamber. It is everything is normal. So which will fall fastest? Okay. Now the intention is you should be able to predict the outcome. Now there are four options that I'm giving to you. Which will fall fastest? You need to post your response in the chat box this time. Okay. A ball will fall fastest, or feather will fall fastest, or both, or nothing will happen. So let me see what people have to talk about. A ball. Okay. So most of the responses are saying bowling ball will fastest. So I don't know which one will fall fastest, right? Now what we can do is I will come with another condition. Okay. Somebody is saying feather in vacuum space, B. Okay. But we are just talking about normal condition. Okay. Now, so my objective remains same, and now I have a second condition. Okay. So where the ball and feather will be dropped in a chamber, and the condition is virtually all the air has been sucked out of the chamber. Okay. So which will fall fastest? These are the same options. So this time you are not supposed to respond in a chat box. Rather, I want you to use menti.com and this time enter this different code 693309 and give your responses. So I will not be reading your responses in the chat box. I would be looking for your responses in Mentimeter. Okay. So there is no excuse of not participating in this particular activity. So those who have responded can see others' responses in the Mentimeter, this live results. So again, now if I am a teacher or if I'm a student, doesn't matter which role I'm playing right now, but I'm finding it interesting that everybody, at least there are few people having different opinions and different thought process. Okay. Doesn't matter if there is a majority people are saying option C, it could be wrong or it could be right. We don't know. That is what this kind of activity makes things interesting, right? So result can be seen only teacher. So there are different ways you can do these settings. Okay. Currently, I'm not showing a result. This is you can show to the participants for engaging them because everybody can see who has responded to what option. Correct. So those who responded in the chat can actually go to Mentimeter and participate. Okay. So this question has triggered my thinking how teachers want to make it happen, whether teacher wants to show the result right away or they want students to think or they want to have discussion about this. So since we are in online mode, having discussion can consume time as well as there is some logistic issues, but if it is in a classroom you can ask everyone to talk about their reasoning of this, why you're saying ball will fall, why feather will fall, why both will fall at same speed, why you think that nothing will happen. So each one of these people have certain logic or reasoning for their choices. Okay. And that is the most important thing that as a teacher we need to trigger among students. Now, what as a teacher, personally me, what I will do is now before instead of telling the answer, rather I will show them some uh, visualization or video. So let me just play a video.
This is NASA's space power.
So are you able to hear the music?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Facility near Cleveland.
So you can hear the voice of the person?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
In Ohio, and it is the world's biggest vacuum chamber. It's used to test spacecraft in the conditions of outer space, and it does that by pumping out the 30 tons of air. Galileo's experiment was simple. He took a heavy object and a light one and dropped them at the same time to see which fell fastest.
So this was the condition one, right? So now you could see the actual results you're using the visualization.
Now, in this case, the feathers fell to the ground at a slower rate than the bowling ball because of air resistance.
So since this video is self-explanatory, we can use as it is, or as an instructor, I can add on to the explanation, or I can, if I'm a teacher, I can, give more explanation about this terminology, like because of air resistance, because of certain things.
So, in order to see the true nature of gravity, we have to remove the air.
Okay, we dropped 2 millitorr in the last 30 minutes.
But once it's complete, there's a near perfect vacuum inside.
6104 manual, 10% open. Station 1, go for drop. PCB 30-1, pressure set point at 240 psi. We are go for drop.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Cameras on. 2, 1. Release.
Look at that.
They came down exactly the same.
So now that we have seen both the condition, we have seen the videos, and we had our own logics. So now there is a clarity and the explanation about what actually lies behind this phenomena, right? So you can think of what would have happened if you could have showed this video right away at the beginning. Were you able to create or trigger the thinking or not? So this kind of decisions as a teacher we need to think about. So how much or how your instructional strategy will impact on their thinking as well as their learning. So rather than giving direct information, we can always integrate certain kind of thing, triggering their thinking.
Look.
Look how they hit right there.
Exactly.
You're back on the side.
Exactly the same.
Feathers don't move, nothing. Look at that.
That's just brilliant. Isaac Newton would say that the ball and the feather fall because there's a force pulling them down, gravity. But Einstein imagined the scene very differently. The happiest thought of his life was this: The reason the bowling ball and the feather fall together is because they're not falling. They're standing.
So this could be an interesting statement to think upon and can be, taken as a discussion, open discussion among students. So rather than just telling them what happens, they can come up with a lot of discussion, lot of examples, similar examples.
Standing still. There is no force acting on them at all. He reasoned that if you couldn't see the background, there'd be no way of knowing that the ball and the feathers were being accelerated towards the earth. So he concluded they weren't.
Right. So yeah, that is how I thought of showing you, the live demonstration of this kind of not only phenomena but activity. So this was from physics. You can also Google. This was a Galileo's famous gravity experiment. You can check yourself later on. Now, what you just saw is a strategy known as POE, that is predict, observe, and explain. Some of you might be aware of it, some of you are not aware of it. So I'll just briefly tell you what POE is, and we can take one more example of that. So there are different ways you can actually set up this POE. The most commonly, I would have showed a videos, initial part of the video. So you can play a visualization up to the point where the stimulus is shown, and then you can pause for the results. Instead of that, what I did was I showed you this images and set up the context. I gave you the context, what is going to happen, and students can observe and think upon, right? In the predict phase, so this is the setting the context. Then once you set the context, then in a predict phase you can ask students to what will happen if, right? So this is what currently I also did. What students will do or participants will do, they will make prediction, they can write, they can vote, they can discuss with each other. All there are so many things you can do: think, pair, share, peer discuss, peer instruction, and so many things you can integrate depending on the situation. Currently we are on online, so I didn't propose a discussion, rather I used just voting and the chat responses. Okay, so there in the predict phase you need to predict. So you had to predict what is going to happen with the ball and the feather. Then there was an observe phase. So then as a teacher, I showed you the, rest of the visualization, and you can check your prediction by watching the visualization, as well as you could have verified your thoughts, and you could have seen the rest of the visualization or the video. So in the last part of explain phase, either as a teacher you can facilitate the discussion on why or the reasons behind the observations, or you can show the visualization again and again. Students can again recheck their understanding with the results. You can replay the video as much as time you want to, or you can give it them for the self learning. So depending, these are the broader steps and the process for this particular context of using visualization. It is up to the teacher how they want to use it. Okay, it depends. You can depending on the topic, depending on the context, it depends on the kind of visualization you're using. Are you using video? Are you using animation, simulations, or just some uh, chemical reactions, or any kind of thing, right? So this is what the broadly POE talks about. Now, before moving, further, I have one more similar examples. I would say we can go more quickly about that, but I want you to participate so that you can actually, if you want to design your own PO, you need to practice this. So now I have a not exactly same but similar example where the learning objective is the student should be able to predict the outcome of phenomena. It's a similar objective, but this time nothing is falling from the top or from the chamber. But if you can see, a helium filled balloon is attached to a thread and placed inside a plastic box. Okay, the box is on wheels, right? This is not vacuum, but just, okay. Then I want you to predict what happens to the balloon when this man pushes this cart forward. So you can simply explain how you made the prediction and write it down, or which physics principle did you use, or you can simply avoid this for this particular moment, and you can simply tell me which of this is going to happen. So what will happen to the balloon if the man in the picture pushes the cart forward? So this is helium filled balloon, this is plastic box, and this is a small thread, this has the wheels, right? This is the context. So go to menti.com, enter this code, and respond with your results. So let me see. Okay, if you can see my screen, the code is still there. It's 1698495. Okay, go to menti.com, enter the code 1698495. Okay, so we will not be having more Mentimeter activities. This one is for just reinforcement purpose. Or if you're not able to access, you can simply respond to chat also, not a problem. Okay, so I could see a few responses, like 43% people are saying. So you can also change this to number or percentage, right? I've also added some image to this so that I can switch between this. What will happen to the balloon, right? So this is how you can make it more interactive. So again, it's the same thing, nothing same in the sense that there are different people having different opinions. So each one will be having different logic behind it. And I won't take much of your time in explaining the same process, but rather I will just quickly go to this video and right away show you, what is going to happen to the balloon. It's very a few seconds, 9 seconds clip. So you don't need to bother about it. We won't take much of the time. So I will just reduce the speed. I'll make it more slower. Let us see what is happening. Yes, the balloon moved forward, right? Again, you can think of what would have happened if I would have showed this right away in the beginning and then I would have taught the students. But here you could see I would not have got these different responses, right? Okay. So now those who said balloon won't move, but actually moved. Those who said move forward, now they will verify, oh, I thought whatever I thought is correct, or I was actually knowing the physics principle, the phenomena behind it, right? Those who said will move backward, then so everybody has a chance to cross verify their thinking or their reasoning of this phenomena. So I'm not going to talk about why did that happen and everything. So I'll share the slides later on and you can cross check your understanding, as this was helium balloon experiment. You can test your knowledge on that. So again, in a similar way, I tried to use the predict, observe strategy, predict, observe, and explain strategy. So definitely, I did not explain it at the moment. This was for the demonstration purpose. I set the context with showing the image and asking a question where student had to or you had to predict what will happen to the balloon, and then showing the visualization, student actually observing. The explanation part I'm keeping you for. I'm not conducting a discussion because we're not going to take much time on that. So you can verify your thought and you can use similar activities for engaging students in your own subject. So if you're from most of the time, if most of the faculties are from mechanical engineering, then you have different machine related activities, procedural activities, where you can actually predict, or fluid mechanics activities, right? So always remember, so as a teacher, you or me or all of us need to remember this triangle of effective learning. Okay, so there is a learning objective, there is an instructional strategy or activity, and there is assessment. So basically, these are the three aspects of effective pedagogy. So the learning objective will you will have to decide what do you want students to be able to do, right? Or and it should be stated in a measurable form. So in the previous example, my learning objective was students should be able to predict XYZ, right? Then assessment should talk about how do you determine that students have attained the learning objectives, and then it should be aligned with the learning objective. Okay, so we will take few look at few examples about the assessment. What we just saw is the instructional activity. So what we saw is, in this triangle of effective learning, the learning objective was prediction of something, and then the activity was POE, predict, observe, explain. So we aligned both of them, and simply you can, if you align with the assessment, it will result in effective learning. Now this is a simply some simple format of POE if you want to take a look at it later on. But I have an activity and assignment for you. So if time permits, or rather I would prefer you doing it offline, right? So you have to design one POE strategy, okay, for or strategy based activity for any of your topic from your current course or your interest, anything that you think would be fit. Don't go for a very simplistic one. You can think of more complex ones, and it is not necessary to have for a whole class. It could be a 2 to 3 minute activity or 5 minute activity depending on the concept. You will need to upload your activities in the format of Word format, PDF, or PPT file using this Google form link that I'll share. Okay, so we're not going to do this at the moment. I'll share this link and I'll share this. Okay, so moving further, this is for your reference. Okay, moving further, how we so this is how I have used Mentimeter. Okay, so I showed you POE activity, some examples of Mentimeter, polling, how to trigger thinking, right? So I'm not saying that there is only Mentimeter that exists, but there are different applications, inbuilt application for LMSs or not. But it is the teacher who decides which one to be used. Okay, so if you're using Mentimeter, I'll just give you short demonstration. Here you can sign in. Here you need to sign in the mentimeter.com. If you're a teacher, you can create your presentations, right? You can explore more about Mentimeter on your own. Once you create the presentations, you can have what type of, if you want to add slide, and what type of question you want to create: multiple choice, word cloud, open ended, question answer, scaling, select answer. There are different ways you can create questions, and then there is a actual content that you want to enter. So you could see these options can be reflected, how you can add images to that, right? Then there are some more features that are need to be added in a advanced or paid version, but simple version is very useful for teacher. So once in a week, if you use such kind of activity, I would say it's very effective. Rather than using it in every lecture, you can use it once in a week or twice in a week, or depending on how many lectures you are having, and students will also find it very interesting. So this is how you can create your own polling activity. So there are a few examples. I'll just quickly browse through. This is a simple multiple choice question from chemistry, right? So teachers were asked to find the correct answer. There was a different way to display it. You can also display a leaderboard where you can actually see who was the fastest among the students, and these are the proxy names, but students can also log in and you can also grade their names also, right? So this is how you can have a leaderboard kind of activity. So this you need to explore on your own, right? So this is activity for you. You can design your own activity. You can integrate it with the POE, predict, observe, explain, and this is a link for Mentimeter. You can explore it later on. Now, coming back to the assessment thing, uh, before moving further, I would like to tell you a few points rather than asking you. So I use Mentimeter for one type of assessment, that is diagnostic, where I try to know your background knowledge, whether you have used Mentimeter or not. Second time I used Mentimeter as a diagnostic assessment for knowing how much you know about this phenomena or what is student prior knowledge. So I could see the mixed responses, right? So then I got to know the 40% are correct, 40% are wrong, 40% are not aware of anything, right? So that is how you can actually use these kind of tools. So as a teacher, there are different assessment related. As a teacher or whoever we have a role to play, we have different assessment related issues to worry about. So if you're a teacher, if you're a curriculum designer, or if you are designing materials or tools, or you're a developer, or anyone who wants to create assessment, there are different things to worry about. So one of the thing is, what should we assess? Okay, so should we assess process or final product? For example, right answers. Then we should assess students subject knowledge or how they can apply it, or we should assess, is student creativity to be assessed, right? These are the things that we need to think upon. So how to start making these decisions? Okay, or how to make this assessment well, or how to do the assessment well? So these are the common questions that we every time trigger. We end up in creating the summative assessment, and we think that assessment is done, but it's not like that. There are different ways we need to think about. The major aspect is to align assessment with learning objective. So whatever is learning objective, we need to align the assessment. So it's worth repeating that: align assessment with learning objective. So for effective learning, we need to align this assessment with learning objective. The previously we saw the example where we align learning objective with this instructional strategy, but here we need to think of aligning assessment with the learning objective. So always remember this triangle of effective learning. Okay, so these are the teaching learning processes, and they need to be aligned with each other. So now the question comes in my mind is that what type of assessment formats are there? Okay, so what are various types? So I'm not talking about summative, diagnostic, or formative. What are the various types? How to decide, and what does the decision depend upon? Okay, the this the type of assessment depends on the approach to teaching learning. This is very important and interesting factor that most time we do it, sometimes we miss it. But if we are conscious enough to understand this particular thing, so for example, so depending on approach of teaching learning, there are two ways of, or two approaches: directed and constructivist. Okay, so this is teacher directed, where you can use multiple choice questions, short answers, solving problems. You can have specific expected responses. The emphasis is more on product or final answer. Okay, and we think that all students must have same skills, like that's how we think. The constructivist approach is entirely different than directed approach. Here you can think of group projects, multimedia product portfolios. It can have multiple acceptable responses, variability in products. The emphasis is not on the final product, but emphasis is on the process, right? Then student must solve novel problems on their own. So definitely we think that they should solve the novel problem, but it should encourage the divergent thinking. They should not be restricted to same skills, but they should have different skills. Okay, so in order to fulfill this, there are certain values that assessment must have. Okay, so assessment should be fair, it should be valid, it should be reliable, it should be conducted timely, it should be incremental, it should also be demanding, It should be formative and summative of nature. Then it should cover most of the aspects of the areas. It should possess different difficulty level. It should be continuous, right? And there are certain decisions that are needed to be taken while we do the assessment. So so these things are more informative that I'm telling you already. We are aware of it, but I'm just trying to consolidate these things, right? So the other decisions to be taken is like we need to think about time constraint or whether it is open ended. Then how to assess the group, should group work be assessed or only individuals need to be assessed. So you must have encountered this situation when you conduct a project vivas or giving marks to the students from the project, where you see one is doing programming, one is not doing anything, one presented well. So how much weightage you distribute for each kind of criteria. How to assess group interactions. So should different learning styles be considered? How? So there are different ways that students learn. So do we need to consider that also, right? Then there are criteria reference or norm reference assessment, then cumulative or time specific. And these days you all must be aware that should technology tools be used? Definitely at this particular pandemic situation, we definitely need to use technology and tools because it's a necessary, right? And how to do that? Then how to manage the records? What to do when there is a large number? So these are the things and considerations and decisions you need to think about. So what do let us revisit the question: what do we mean by assessment? Okay. So considering all the points that I have discussed, what I feel is, or what normally all of us do is, assessment should reveal how well students have learned what we want them to learn. Okay. So just carefully go through the statement. It should reveal how well students have learned what we want them to learn. Okay. So here it's more of what we want them to learn, isn't it? Okay. It's fine. So the learn you need to consider about the first learning objective. There you define what you want students to learn, right? Student will be able to do something, student will be able to explain something, student will be able to describe something, student will be able to draw something, right? So these are the different cognitive levels of Bloom's taxonomy. There uh, you can think of, are all these learning objectives at same level? So are all these learning objectives are at same level? So if we can have a different representation of the same thing, so these are the different cognitive levels. So definitely these are not at the same level. Okay. So those who are familiar with the Bloom's taxonomy can simply easily relate to it. Otherwise, you can check your understanding later on. I'll also have some slide on that. So just to check this, I have few simple questions for you. Okay. And we can go very quickly with those questions. Okay. So you need to respond this into the chat. So here, what I'm talking about is, okay, we need to rank given assessment question in terms of Bloom's taxonomy from lower to higher levels. Okay. So these are the 4 questions and you need to rank which one comes first. So first is calculating current, second is stating the condition, third one is designing the motor, fourth one is finding the impedance. Okay. So you can respond in a chat. So you need to rank the given assessment questions in terms of a Bloom's taxonomy. So I could see a response that B. Okay. 2143B, correct. Okay. So yes, the B is the correct answer, I would say. Here I have reorganized the sequence 2143. If you are able to see the slide. Okay. Now, what are these cognitive levels that I was talking about? Okay. So depending on the action verbs and the keywords, I could say that the number 2 was at recall level, number 1 was at apply level, number 4 was analyze, number 3 was create level, right? Now, stating the condition is simply recalling the information. You don't need to put much of thing about that. So in order to calculate current, you need to apply certain knowledge about the current formula and the understanding of the concepts, right? Then only you will be able to calculate. Then finding impedance, you need to analyze the given circuit, right? That's how it comes in analyze. Similarly for design, so when we think about designing something, we have learned other levels and we want to apply as well as then we need to create. So that comes to the create level. Okay. So this is just a small example of how we can think about it, right? Now, the next question is about, I'll keep this chat box open. Okay. So let's see what is the cognitive level of these assessment questions. So here's the question. You just need, these are the options. You need to tell me what is the cognitive level of this question. You can respond in here, whether it is a recall, whether it's apply, whether it is understand, whether it's analyze, whether it's evaluate, which is cognitive level. So, okay, you are responding with the answer, but I'm asking you, what is the cognitive level of this question? This is the question. You don't need to answer the right or wrong answer, but what is the cognitive level? So let me give example. So the cognitive level of this question is recall. Yes, correct. Yeah, somebody has responded. So recall, because you just need to remember the unit of the resistance. That's why it is recall. Okay, so you need to recognize and recall facts. So you need to remember previously learned material. There is not much to do here. Okay. Okay, so next question, same thing. So you need to identify what is the cognitive level of. The question 2 is circuit is shown. Okay, you are supposed to use nodal analysis to find the voltage at each node of this circuit. What do you think is the cognitive level of this question? Okay, apply. Yes, correct. So in order to, so simply it is telling you apply something to find something, right? Yes, it is at apply level. So you in apply, you use knowledge in new situations that involve certain methods and laws and certain rules. So here is the next question for you. Okay. Describe the working principle of moving coil galvanometer. What is the level, cognitive level of this question? Understand. Okay. Correct. So yes, this talks about explaining or interpreting something based on memorized information. So when you expect someone to describe something, you intend that they must have understood. That's how they'll be able to describe, right? Correct. So here's the next question for you. What is the cognitive level of these questions? Where I have shown you 4 circuit diagrams. In the circuits of diagrams A, B, C, D, what method has been used to control the current in the circuits? So what do you think is the cognitive level of this question? Yeah. Is it understand? Is it apply? Is it create? Is it analyze? Is it evaluate? Is it recall? Somebody is saying apply, somebody is saying analyze. Okay, so let me check. Analyze. So those who are saying analyze and apply can verify their thoughts. Okay, yeah, it is at analyze level, because what we can understand from, there are 4 circuit diagrams. Since we need to compare all these 4 diagrams to actually investigate the answer, we need to do the analysis. Yeah, please. For theory courses, most question will be in understand level. Now, I won't agree because it depends. So understanding, so if we just ignore the fact of Bloom's taxonomy, everything we teach or learn is to understand something, right? But understanding also has different ways. So even if you want to design something, you need to have the other levels covered. Okay, even for analyzing, we need to know, we need to understand, we need to describe, we need to apply. So there are, it depends on the actually context and the topic. Okay, so understanding will be there always. Okay, understanding with the basic level is okay. Now, so when you're saying basic level, so that's why the Bloom says, no, there are different cognitive stages, levels of understanding or of knowledge. So when we simply remember the formula or we simply remember the units of measurement, so that has not much information to do about. But if you want to explain something, that has a different purpose altogether, right? So yeah, depending on the context, I would rather say than simply saying it will be at an understand level. Okay, but for describing the full working means, that's a different level. Exactly, exactly. So here in this particular example, in order to analyze these four circuits, first I need to know what is circuit diagram, what is current, what is circuit, how to design the circuits. So these are different levels. So from lower level to higher level. Yes. Then last understanding question is coming under different level. So what I would say is, see, here you are using understanding as a broader level term. Okay, broader level term. So we always, so see, I can ask if it is a fluid mechanics. Okay, so fluid mechanics, it's a semester long course. And based on that, if I just ask a question to student, have you understood the subject fluid mechanics? Now the point is, what is the expected answer? Okay, previous question. Describe the working principle of moving coil. Yes, correct. It has a different level of interpretation and understanding. Correct. Correct. Yes. Yeah. Okay. Okay. So just to quickly move further with this exercise, um, I have one more question for you. Now you can tell me. Examine the different cases of hydrostatic forces acting on surface submerged fluid. So not necessarily I'm the expert in the topic, but I can simply extract the information and think about what is the cognitive level of question. So rather than asking you, let me see, it is evaluate. So yeah, correct, evaluate. So when we want to evaluate something or examine something, these kind of questions that we can create on. Now this was about identifying the cognitive level of questions. So let us look at a few examples where I want to see talk about alignment of these assessment questions with learning objectives. So let us see if these questions are aligned with the learning objectives. So what I'll do is I'll have a learning objective written like this and assessment question below that. And this is the part of question. And you just simply need to respond with yes and no. So my learning objective in question example 1 is student should be able to draw VI graph for ohmic and non-ohmic resistors. So this is my learning objective. Now what my assessment question is, which of the given is a characteristic of non-ohmic resistance, right? So just tell me if these are aligned or not, yes or no. Okay. So what I'm asking is students should be able to draw the graph. Okay. Anyone else want to respond? So actually, if you see, these are well aligned with each other. So let me tell you how it is aligned. So both are at understand level. Okay. Yes. Yeah. Both are at understand level. How? Because the intention is the student should be able to draw the graph, and they will be able to draw the graph only when they have understood something and they have recalled something, right? They can recall something. They are able to explain something. Simply non-understandable graph they cannot draw, but to draw a correct graph they need to understand. And if they're able to draw the graph, then for a given question they will be able to compare this graph, and they will be able to tell which one is ohmic and which one is non-ohmic, right? That is how you can simply think of. So another example is example 2 is just quickly go through this example and tell me if they are aligned or not. Objective is student should be able to apply Ohm's law in simple series circuit. So here I'm expecting them to apply something. Assessment question is design a circuit that will reduce the given DC fan speed with 40% of its current speed. Okay. You're saying yes. Would you like to verify your response? Okay. Okay, so it's a very tricky way to design this questions and learning objective. So if you carefully look at it, these are not aligned. Why? Let me tell you. Because if you carefully observe the learning objective, students should be able to apply Ohm's law in simple series circuits. I'm talking about simple series circuit. Okay, so it is at apply level. Here, I'm asking them to create something, a design circuit. Okay, that will reduce. So there are more parameters and more actions that are required, or more knowledge is required. Okay, so they're not actually aligned at cognitive level, though your response is based on okay, so some, even I would like to argue with whether it is yes or no, because in a broader perspective that this kind of question is required. Okay, because this question will require this knowledge, but they are not aligned at the same time, so that may create some confusion between students. So it's better to have aligned. Okay, so the next similar question is, LO is student should be able to calculate resistance in the circuit from these parameters. And my question is, write the mathematical law, mathematical statement of Ohm's law. So are they aligned? Yes or no? Yes, anyone else? Okay, so there are mixed responses I could see. Yes, no, yes. So no. Okay. Can we check the answer rather than waiting for more time? So they're not aligned actually. So just let us cross check. So when we say they should be able to calculate, right? Am I audible?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay, okay, fine. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah. So here we want student to calculate something. So in order to calculate, they should be knowing certain formulas and fundamentals about the circuit. So this is at apply level. Here, write mathematical statement for Ohm's law. Here you don't need to apply something, even if you know. It is just simply remembering the statement, mathematical expression. That's why these both are not aligned. So the questions are correct at their respective level, but are not aligned. Okay. Just excuse me for a moment. Okay, so yeah, that's how it works. So what you need to remember is always remember this blooming all the way, the Bloom's taxonomy. Okay, so a series of questions in a given topic that goes from recall level to create level. See, sometimes it's tricky, okay, but once you have this handy, you will be able to understand. So you can create a question bank in various topics so that we can use them while framing assignments and exams. So you have a course, then you have units, then you have chapters, then you have sections, right? It's a very well divided in chunks. So you just need to design your question bank accordingly rather than getting confused at the last hour or every time you conduct lecture. You always can think of this. So you can always remember this Bloom's taxonomy. This is for your reference. I have given for a reference those who are not aware of it. So Bloom has designed, a taxonomy where it has a different cognitive levels from recall to create. These are some examples from some subjects, like if it is a maths high school level. I'm not going to read everything. So for example, it's a coordinate geometry, then these are the levels you can take a look at later on, and you can simply see how they have devised these questions. So for recall, state the formula, understand, draw the diagram. Similarly, in the engineering discipline, in the digital logic subject, and the topic is logic gates, these are the different levels and these are the assessment questions. So this is for your yes, I'll be sharing the presentation. So that's why I'm just browsing through with this questions. Okay. Then in the subject like fluid mechanics, and the topic is fluid statics. So this is how you can chunk it in the different parts. So here are different questions you can actually take a look at. Okay, so I was talking much about learning objectives and action verbs. So this is again extensive list of the action verbs that can be used for each cognitive level, right? For recall, there are different keywords. So sometimes it may happen that you may get confused with using certain keywords, but once your learning objective is clear, you will be able to simply use the appropriate ones. Okay, so this was about how you can do the assessment. Now this was about designing questions, but what about certain aspect of assessments, like assessment of projects or certain designs or presentations that we make or a portfolios of people, right? So assessment of project designs and presentations, there are certain goals and constraints that we have. So we want to evaluate the process, not only the product. Okay, it is descriptive and diagrammatic. It is not simply question and answer oriented. There is no single measure. For example, there is no single design. So sometimes traditional assessment may not be very useful. So yes, so I'll be sharing the presentations with everyone, so don't worry about it. After the session gets over, I will be sharing. Yeah. So to do assessment of these project design and presentation, the traditional tools may not be sufficient. So what we do is, there is one solution, which is a rubrics. You must have already been using it in a different way, but if you practice it more, you'll get more familiar with it. So this is rubrics is not covered in this session. It takes entire different session to design it. Okay, so I'll talk about few examples of how we can assess students in online mode. I'll use example of Moodle. Okay, I'll not be talking about Moodle functionalities or something. I'll be just giving examples and screenshots of some certain features which could be similar to other LMSs also, and you can simply align those with your assessment questions. Okay, so broadly, before talking about that, I have compiled this diagnostic formative summative assessment in different aspects. So when to use diagnostic assessment? So normally we use it at the beginning of the unit, right? Okay, when do we use formative assessment? During the unit of study. When do we use summative assessment? Most of the time at the end of the unit of the study, right? So what is the key purpose of diagnostic assessment? Designing mostly designing instructions or diagnostic students prior knowledge. Formative assessment is one of the important and very much interesting part where we focus on improving students learning. This is mostly summative to provide credentials or providing grades. Okay, so what it involves? Okay, so this is nothing but the details of what we talked about. We have already seen much of it. So diagnostic assessment, it involves diagnosing students prior knowledge and their prior skills, then identifying their needs, what do they want to learn, what are their expectations and motivations for attending the course or the program, then prioritizing a topic for deeper explanation and dialogue. Then if you look at the formative assessment, it involves continuously monitoring students learning, then providing immediate opportunities to apply knowledge and skills. So this is important, providing immediate opportunities. I'll explain with one example. So then again, to evaluate performances for comprehensive and customized feedback. And already we have seen the summative assessment in different aspects, like providing grades and scores and evaluating against some standards, then providing students opportunity to demonstrate their knowledge and skills like presentations and final grades. Okay, then communicating their capacities and competencies. Okay, so what this does not emphasize is on, okay, so this does not emphasizes on grading and scoring students. Diagnostic assessment does not emphasizes on grading or scoring. Okay, formative assessment also does not emphasizes on grading or scoring, and summative assessment does not focus on providing comprehensive feedback. This so whatever these two does, this will not do, and the vice versa. So this is uh, so possible teacher and TA roles are definitely design and execution, right? This is the most common part. You don't need to talk much about that. So this is a summary table, I can say, in a tabular form where you can actually access. Now let us take a look at it one by one with the help of Moodle example. So if I talk about diagnostic assessment, so this is from Moodle. Okay, those who have used Moodle, they will be very much familiar with these different options of assessment. Okay, so for diagnostic assessment, specifically for diagnosing students prior knowledge and skills, you can have quiz feature. You can use this quiz where you can have activities where teacher can create quiz and try to diagnose their prior knowledge, right? So if you're using Moodle, you will be very much familiar with that. Or if you remember the Mentimeter examples that we have used, predict, observe, explain, as well as the initial question, this is how we can use, right? So these are the features of the Moodle. Then there is another what activity that Moodle provides is a choice. So this is a quick poll to stimulate thinking about a topic, similar to what we did in Mentimeter. You can also quickly test their understanding. Okay, then you can facilitate decision making, such as allowing them to vote on direction for the course. The course direction is important. Okay, so here you can identify students needs and expectations and their motivations. So there are a lot of features you can if you're using Moodle, can be think upon. Okay, it takes entirely different course to learn the Moodle, you must be very well aware of that. So next aspect is formative assessment. So there are different features from that. You can also use the quiz for delivering immediate feedback about performance. So for example, in our feather and balloon examples, you had different opinions about the answer, or you had different reasoning for each of your answers. So with the explanation, immediate explanation why it is correct and why it is not correct, that kind of immediate feedback can be given to students in order to support the learning. As well as you can also talk about self-assessment. Okay, so another feature of formative assessment in Moodle is the workshop activity. Okay, so this activity module enables the collection, review, and peer assessment of student work. So student can submit their digital content, Word files, documents, spreadsheets, and that can be assessed using multiple criterias, right, defined by teachers. So that is also, if you are using Moodle, you must be very well aware, or you can explore on that. So I'm just giving you a few examples of it, not necessarily they will be applicable to at the moment, but this is more of an informative part. Okay. Then one more feature for formative assessment is providing immediate opportunity, like I was telling you. So there is another question feature is calculated. So these are numerical questions, okay, but with the numbers used to select randomly, right? So this is again interesting features. So this is just to summarize this part, as these are the Moodle activities, and you can use MCQs for diagnostic as well as formative assessment. You can have a simulation quiz, you can give customized feedback. So I would emphasize on giving customized feedback, okay? So, and then again creating calculated questions. So this is what I just showed you about. Not much emphasis I'll be giving upon. Rather than I will tell you about, okay, so those who are familiar with the learner centric MOOC, or even if you're not familiar, uh, this this particular thing called as learning by doing activities and giving feedback is very much famous and quietly practiced method, where once you have taught something, okay, that is once you have your learning dialogue or instructional video of 5-10 minutes, then you can actually create some learning by doing activities. So now in normal terms we call it as a activity after the instructions. Okay, so this could be formative assessment between your small videos. LEDs is nothing but videos. Okay, this details won't be a part of this session. Okay, and this will also give immediate application and practice. Okay, you can create these LBD activities or learning by doing activities, and that also depends on different features of your online platform. If you're currently thinking about online only, okay, there are different level of complexities that could be mapped with your Bloom's cognitive levels. Now this is including customized feedback. Okay, so this the same way I was mentioning you, whether it is correct, why it is correct, whether it is wrong, why it is wrong. So you need to display all the answers, right? So that can be explored. I'll share the link with you. So these are also okay, so there is one recommendation. We don't need to push all the LBD activities at the end of the module or end of the course. So suppose if you're teaching one unit and it will take like 3 weeks to cover that unit or that chapter, don't wait for 3 weeks to finish and then give them activity. Rather than have those activities every week or after every lecture, because that is how they will develop their understanding and you can progress further. Okay, so these are the reference slides. I will not be talking much about it, but if yeah, you can have take a look at when I share the slides. Okay, the other part of is summative assessment, like we know in face-to-face mode. In similar way, we can have assignment submitted, which in order to provide grades, you can receive student submission in any digital format such as Word, documents, spreadsheets, audio, video, whatever. And this should be aligned with your learning objectives. It should not happen that they should simply write and scan the copies and send the PDF and then again you evaluate. Rather than try to have it in a more concrete way so that you can always assess their word processed documents, right? Okay. So this is what the summative assignment assessment. So broadly concluding with this, like deciding assessment activities, their purpose, weighing the purpose and constraint. So the purpose should be diagnostic, formative, or summative. These are the major purposes of the assessment. What are the constant that we have is the nature of the content, right? Then need to align with learning objective or instructional goal, you can say. Then these are the constant like number of students, whether it's a small or large. Then time and efforts required, then skills required to design activities. As a teacher, it's a very much a tedious task for us. Then whether it has a high stakes or low stakes. Okay. Then how to deal with large or less scope with some malpractices, like student copying each other's assignments. Then there are technological affordances or possibilities and you can think of. So even if I have shown you Mentimeter or Moodle, or even if you are using Zoom, not necessarily students will be having the same access to the same resources. So there are a lot of different challenges that we have for online teaching, but yes, eventually we'll need to figure out which one suits our need. Okay, now I just have one more interesting part about assessment. So here is an activity for you now. Okay, so I'll just copy paste this link. So what you need to do is uh, up to this part, what is the most valuable or helpful idea or concept that you have learned in this session, or anything that is useful for you that you think? One or two things, two, three things will also be fine. And what is the muddiest or most confusing point that you had faced about this session? Okay, so do not respond in the chat. Go to this link. I will share this link in the chat window. So I'll tell you how it works. Some of you must be familiar with the Padlet. Okay, so this is how, once you browse the link, this window will appear. Okay, so just browse to the link padlet.com. Okay, okay, this is how the Padlet will open. Those who have used it is fine. If those who have not used it, it's simply a sticky note kind of interface. If you click on the plus sign, or if you double click, you'll see a text box that appears. You can write your name. You don't need to log in at the moment. You just simply can access this and you can put it here, your text, right? So here you can simply post your thing. So what you are supposed to do is write brief answers to the following questions. What is the most valuable or helpful idea or concept that you have learned, and what is the most confusing or muddiest point or something that you did not understand? Okay, so go to Padlet link and post it here. Either you can click on the plus sign, yeah, and those who are seeing, you can see the others are responding. Others can also try creating their own sticky note or respond in Padlet. So you just need to double click and the text will appear. The text box will appear. Just double tap or double click. Even if you're using mobile phone, it is also possible to use. You don't need to download app. You can simply go through to the browser. Okay, so now the point is, I could see that I could see many responses. Uh, so as a participant, what you are focusing on, something that was useful for you or something that you did not understand. But at the same time, everyone is responding at the same platform. So I can see everybody else's responses, so that you also can see everybody else's responses. So suppose some Mentimeter was useful for someone, Padlet was useful for someone, ICT tool was useful for someone. So now we know what are the useful things that people found in the session, or what are the confusing things that student or participants found in sessions, right? Yeah, you just go and respond, and then I'll come back to. Okay, so yeah, so this is just a quick exercise for all of us to understand what is Padlet. So those who have used Padlet can understand easily. Otherwise, for those who do not, I will just quickly go through it. So I'll talk about what is minute paper. Okay, so what we just did now is a minute paper activity where I gave you 1 minute to reflect upon what was useful for you in the session. Okay, so for example, so what minute paper is, this is one of the very well used assessment technique. So at the end of each class or a period, we can ask students to write brief answer to the following questions. Most common questions are like, what is the most valuable or helpful idea or concept that you learned, right? Then you can also ask about what is the most confusing or muddiest point about this lecture, right? So there are different variations you can use in a minute paper, which are again the similar. That is, you can always ask to write in 1 sentence summary of the content of the class period. That will have some thinking to be done. Same way, you can ask what is the potential application of today's content to your class or to your career. This is a sample statement, but right. Then what is the confusing or muddiest point of today's session? So this is just to tell you, and through the activity, that how well does using minute paper appears in courses work. So this is like, based on research, right? So the findings have suggested that using 1 minute paper increased student performance by approximately 0.5. So There are different findings that supports and evidences suggest that this activity has benefited students, right? And it does not depend on the instructor who implements it. So now just think about last 2 hours you are listening to the instructor, and just 1 minute activity, and you can actually reflect upon what actually you learned. It doesn't matter whether I have taught you or you have learned from someone else, but it is not dependent on the instructor but the information as well as this particular activity, because you are focusing that 1 minute on thinking about what was the most important point of this session or the lecture. And that is what the takeaways, that is how students this is how it helps in bettering the learning, right? So there are other findings, other researches you can see that not necessarily depends on their ability level. Okay, so these are the different things. These are some more findings to support and just to tell you and just to emphasize that how you should also try to use minute paper in your class. Okay, so just imagine that you are having 30 lectures in 2-3 months, and you are asking one question to students: what is the most important point that you learned in today's class? So you have like 30 different responses for 30 lectures. You have a list of all this, such a huge list of all the important topics. So as a teacher, you know what students are interested in learning, what they have actually learned, what you wanted them to learn, what was the learning objective, is everything is in alignment or not, right? And you also have that data and information with you. So based on that, you can design your further curriculum, right? This is how minute paper can help you. Okay, so just for the classroom assessment techniques, these are the class. This is a classroom assessment technique where the question. These are some sample questions for minute paper I'm giving. Give a 5 to 10 line summary of last night's reading. Include 2 or 3 main ideas. Suppose you have given something to read for students. This is how you can ask the questions. These are some sample questions you can reflect upon and take a look at. Okay, what are the most important points from discussion? Summarize today's discussion to a friend. So most of the time what happens, if a friend misses this lecture, they ask their friend, hey, what was important in today's lecture? I missed it, can you please tell me? So they try to grasp the whole lecture information in just one conversation or 1 or 2 statements, right? Then define in your own terms, then tell me something, what is wrong with this statement. These are some sample questions. You can also take a look at the references and you can create your own. Okay, so since there are like 5 minutes left, I would like to just quickly browse you through some extra part that I have kept, that is Padlet. So Padlet is also an online virtual bulletin board where students and teacher can collaborate and reflect. So here everybody can comment on everybody else's comment and ask questions. Teacher can participate, right? Okay, you can use it for brainstorming or other stuffs. You could see that there are different ways you can post here. If I'm creating link here, I can upload files from computer like PDF or anything, right? Or I can share links, I can share maps, I can share pictures, and there is huge options. You can explore on your own so many things, right? Then Padlet is free and easy to use. You can create 3 Padlets. So how I have used it recently, just now you have seen, but there are different ways I have used it. So I asked a question, I asked the audience to think for a few minutes, and then I asked them to post it on Padlet. So one classic example that I've been using is like, what is animation according to you? So in my animation and 3D modeling class, there are like 60, 70, 100, 200 students are there. And animation, even if I ask you, everybody has different opinion about animation. So instead of me telling them what is animation, I wanted to know what they are thinking about animation. So that is kind of a diagnosis of their understanding. So I'm using a Padlet for that. Okay, so if I just browse to Padlet, here, if you can set up the different backgrounds, you could see there are plenty of different ways people have talked about animation using pictures, creating virtual objects, computer creation, digital flipbook, moving images. So now I can see there how actually students are thinking about animation, right? Then I can explain them what is actually animation. No? That is how you can use a Padlet. That is one way to use it. That is for diagnosis purpose. So there is another way I have used it. Since I hope some of you are familiar with the 3D modeling. So in the second scenario, in the same animation or similar animation workshop, there was modeling sessions were happening. So I trained students online for 3D modeling, and I wanted them to submit their submission. So I asked them to create 3D model, and then I asked them to post the output on Padlet. So this is how I showed the demonstration. Okay, these are the two links where I have asked them to submit. So this is the first assignment. So I showed them the vast demo and they created. So now I could respond them individually, as well as others can see what their friends have done. So I can ask, how have you added color or something like that. So this is more of a formative assessment where I can gauge their performance, whether they have at what level they are. So I can simply figure out that this student is far ahead from this student. There are different levels. So how much effort I should put in teaching this students, how much effort I need to put in teaching this students, right? So this is at initial level. But at the end, my learning objective was students should be able to create a scene where they should be having more different objects. So you could see that this is what the final expected outcome. So there they should be able to create the scene. Okay. So this is what I was expected. Okay. So I'll just show you this links and how this Padlet is helping out. So it's entirely dependent on us. Okay. So if I show you, hello, sorry for the interruption. So this is what you can see the submissions. I can check the individual submissions. Here you can see, the full enlarged screen, and you can actually evaluate their submissions. You could see that somebody has added a texture and material. People can like, provide their feedback, they can ask questions. Now everybody can see everybody else's submission. So earlier I used to, in face-to-face classroom, what used to happen, I was running in the lab, and I have to go to each and everybody's desktop and screen and to see what they have done, and then provide them feedback. Now here I don't need to reach out them individually, whereas everybody else can access everybody else's submission, right? So similarly, you can see here the submissions, right? You could see different scenes that they have created, right? So this is the final assignment. So that the final objective, that they should be able to do the 3D modeling, they should be able to apply the texture, they should be able to apply the lighting, they should be able to render the image, they should be able to set the camera. So these were the broader learning objectives, and this is how I have used it for the formative assessment. So this is just to give you an example of how I have used it, and definitely it is depending on your context and topic, these tools you can use. So that's how the Mentimeter or Padlet you can use. There are so many tools available similar to Mentimeter and Padlet. It is just that you need to know the right pedagogy for it. Yeah. So I would say, so here is a link I'll be sharing, where this online teaching self-paced course developed by EdTech Department, IT Bombay. You can browse when you have the slides, and these are the acknowledgements. And thank you very much for your time. If there are any